Alright, we need to talk for a second, and I need to apologize. It's quite a thing. I've said some things I'm not exactly proud of, and you know, we're all humans, and we'll make mistakes. Sometimes things happen, and just for the record, I haven't written anything down because I like to keep this organic. So, apologize. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I need to rectify some things. I've said some things a while ago that I'm not all that proud of, and let's just cut all this crap off. Let's just get into the video. Who cares? You've read the title. Let's talk about Atlas 2 by Algonaut, and let's get into where I was wrong and how they proved me wrong, which is awesome. So without further ado, let's get DAW-sided and let's get going. So here we are, DAW-sided, and let's talk a little bit about Atlas. So it's about 9 months ago that I made a video about Atlas, Algonaut Atlas, compared to XLN Audio XO. And if you follow me on Instagram, you might know that I'm a pretty big XO advocate these days. It's pretty much in all posts I make, and it's just a wonderful, nice program that works really fast. Back in that video, and I don't know the exact wording, but it's along the lines of Atlas not being updated for quite a while, and me not having a whole lot of faith in the program being under any sort of development. And back at that time, I based that off the Instagram, which was fairly inactive, and the website that didn't really get any updates anymore. So for me at that point it was a bit like, I'm not going to call it abandonware, but it doesn't really feel all that amazing. Obviously I'm wrong, because we now have Atlas 2. So some things happened in between. As a full disclosure, Algonaut did in fact contact me and ask me to try the new Atlas 2 version, and they also sent me a license for it. They did, however, not in any way say what I can and cannot say about this plugin, so that's really awesome. And I'm very glad they trust me to not say too much bad stuff about it. Let's find out, shall we? Yeah, so it was pretty dark on their Instagram and their website, and all of a sudden this drops, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. But at the same time, I also thought, I already have XO now, which I didn't have when I bought Atlas originally. And there wasn't a really strong urge to upgrade, and the upgrade price from Atlas 1 to Atlas 2 is $19. I think that's very reasonable. And once we get into new features, you will see for yourself that this is indeed very reasonable. Now, for all the people that don't own Atlas 1, buying Atlas 2 will be $99 US. So your price will be slightly different if you have a different currency. You can just check the site. I will link it in the description down below. So what is Algonaut Atlas? For all the people who haven't seen the first video or haven't heard about this program, it's basically a sample library manager specifically aimed at drum samples. And you probably know the bigger brother XLN Audio XO, which I already mentioned a couple of times by now. This is pretty similar, and I may be wrong here, but I think actually Algonaut was before XO with this concept. So what we have here is the old V1.4 Atlas, and here we have the V2 Atlas. So the first thing you might notice is some things have moved around. This is actually partially due to it being a different layout. If you turn it into this layout, you will see it actually becomes fairly similar, although definitely a little bit sharper and cleaner. And as an added benefit, you also get the galaxy view mode. And now things start to get pretty familiar for the XO users. So here you find all your samples. You can also have them in the Earth view, which groups samples together. So if you zoom out, you get bigger categories, and when you zoom in, you get finer details. It's actually pretty, it's almost like a game of life vibe when you zoom in, all the little dots moving around. If you don't like that vibe, you can switch to Galaxy and you can just zoom in. But I think that's pretty interesting. You can set favorites, of course. And that's another feature which I said was lacking in Atlas versus XO. That's the mouse hover noise makey thingy. If you just record the output, you can create some very interesting drum breaks, I guess. There's sort of that effect when a cartoon character falls off the stairs. This is a cool little addition. This is your favorite samples, and this is to reset your favorite samples, and you can favorite samples by just selecting them and clicking favorite. And now if you go into favorite view, there should be a little dot somewhere. There it is. This is, by the way, not my entire sample library, but I try to keep it somewhat reasonable. Which is another nice little feature that Atlas offers. You can actually group your drum kits into maps. So you can create new libraries, and every map can be composed of folders. So here you can see your folders. And you can set your colors and your naming, and this way you can really make specific groups. If you really want to do a group of, for instance, different Lindrum kits, you can throw all your Lindrum kits into one map, and that way you only have to deal with those. This is slightly better organized than XO, if you ask me. I quite like this system of making your own custom maps, and also if you just load in one single folder, for instance, it stays pretty neat. So on that topic, let me just quickly create a new map. So when you build a new map, Atlas will check all the samples which are in the folders. Now this is a pretty clean folder from drum samples from Mars, so they have everything categorized, so it should be pretty fast in building that map. There we go. Saving, and this is all the Lindrum samples from drum samples from Mars. If you go into Galaxy View, you can better see how many samples it just processed, and it did that pretty fast. So from here on out, it's in a sense pretty familiar to the XO users, but it also makes a lot of sense from other perspectives. You can just set your samples here. This can be done by clicking and dragging anything anywhere you want. But if you feel a little bit adventurous, you can also just create a new kit. And we can just click new kit and it will replace all the samples. Let's quickly listen to what this kit sounds like. If there are any specific samples you like, you can lock them down. And when you change the kit, these samples won't change. So now you can just randomize all the other samples. You can also choose to only randomize one sample by just clicking the refresh thingy. And if you want even more control over the samples, you have some basic controls here for the gain, shape, filter and pitch, and a second page for the filter resonance fine tuning and the shape curve. So if you change the shape, you will get shape curve. You can also lock these parameters down. If you change the kit, these parameters will be kept. And if you want some more fine control of your samples, you can hit the little advanced tab and you will get some velocity, pitch, time filter and all that sort of fun stuff down here. You can also reverse it, phase flip it. Now the nice thing is, right now it's set to a 1x8 grid, and as you saw before, you can actually change it up to 2x8, 4x4, 8x8, and there's also a launchpad and a Ableton Launchpad preset sized for this, and this is very nice. This way you can add a shit ton of samples, which is pretty cool advantage really. As of right now, XLN XO is still limited to 8 samples, and personally I find 8 well, not enough really most of the time, because if you want to have your bass drum, your snare, hi-hat open, hi-hat closed, you probably want like 3 or 4 toms, maybe a ride, maybe some cymbals. You are already well over 8. So with XO I find myself frequently running 2 instances just to get everything. So this is definitely a big advantage. And also if you're a drummer that wants to use a lot of samples, I would say this could work really well for you with the eDrum kit connected, which I will try later on, but that's outside of the scope of this video. So this is all pretty familiar. If you look at the old version, you will see samples here, you will see the advanced tab here, pretty similar stuff, and the pitch thingies are down here. There's also a setting to set the MIDI root key, which is also here. Not that many differences. One thing which is pretty cool is having the ability to split this into 16 channels of output. Now Atlas does not have any built-in effects. That's a little bit of a shame. Maybe something for the future, who knows? So if you want to add reverb or distortion to specific parts of your instrument, you will have to split it out to a different channel and put your effects on those channels. For which I will probably make a video sooner or later. So far, you might be saying, well, there isn't that much new stuff in here, so what exactly is the upgrade to Atlas? And that's where this little top thingy comes in. You might notice you have maps, you have browser, and you have sequencer. Missing from the original Atlas, and definitely one of those features that was highly requested. I mentioned it as well, it would be a killer feature to have. And now we actually have a sequencer, and this is really cool. It's also connected to your DAW, which is pretty awesome. So you can just... So that's pretty cool. This sequencer, obviously one of the classic line sequencer styles. You can set your step. I'm going to try to make it as big as possible so you can actually see it on the stream. You can set the amount of, or the step sizes down here. You can mirror every X beat. And one of the cooler things is you can actually do polymeters, which is something that is definitely lacking in XO. So here you can actually do really weird odd time beat things. I think it's a smart move at this point to just generate something entirely new. That's 8 pretty distinctive sounds. Let's go to sequencer. Let's actually clean this up. There we go. So that's our sequencer, so we can just draw in our kicks. Now if we're going to mirror this, you can see that it will copy our beats. So this is very nice. We can do the basic clair snap. Let's just do our hi-hats. It's a pretty terrible kick. There we go. Now these samples are from various sample packs, so don't mind the lackluster quality of those, because that's nothing to blame on Atlas. This is just random sample packs, so what you get is random stuff. Anyway, so you have the mirror edit, which is a very nice feature. You can also open these little thingies up, and you will get some velocity editing. This also mirrors. Pretty cool. You can actually change the step size without changing your sequence. So it's a pretty easy way to do some editing. You can also set the length of your sequence, 4 or 16 even. Shuffle. And you can rotate the sequence left and right. Now the nice thing of having this flexible step size is that you can actually add flair pretty quickly, because you can just go into 32 triplets for instance, and you can just, let's do that every 2. So that makes editing pretty fast. Bigger step size, 16 triplets. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much. I personally note a lot of things in 8s, but I can definitely get used to 16s. That's a minor inconvenience, I guess. Something you can quickly work around. So let's get into this second thing. I think they're called polyrhythms. I think I would call it polymeters, but that's always a little bit of a weird line. So let's start messing with this. So now we have just a basic 4/4. So that's some pretty crazy stuff you can achieve with using these, what they call polyrhythms, what I would arguably call polymeters. What's their name? At least you get the option to change the sequence length for every individual instrument. And this also means you can, of course, create odd time rhythms. something that the sequencer of XO sadly lacks, and definitely a very nice feature. Next to that, you also get some options to either import sequences or create random sequences, and this is pretty crazy. So let's just hit randomize a few times and let's see what happens. Now, it seems like I forgot to turn on the drum hit filtering option. There's actually an option for this. If you make a map, you can actually specifically say that it should only take drum samples, which probably uses some sort of neat little algorithm machine learning thing to filter out things that are either really long, so there are loops, or things that do not fit the profiles that are classified as drum samples. Do always keep in mind that any algorithm-based thing is bound to have some discrepancies, which is completely normal. Every so often it will not know whether something is a bass drum or a snare drum. That happens. It happens here, it happens in XO, it happens in Loop Cloud. Every algorithm-based system will have some discrepancies where things will be wrongly classified. Completely normal, not something I'm going to spend too much time on. Anyways, that's the sequencing option. So there are some things here that XO simply does not do. Like for instance this polymeter polyrhythm thing, very cool. The variation styles, the chaos and the variations, pretty awesome. Would be nice to have a little bit more control where you can, for instance, lock a specific lane and just say don't change this lane. That would definitely be neat. But still, it's a very good way to quickly generate a lot of chaos or really cool grooves. It can always go both ways with randomization. So yep, use with discretion, but definitely inspirational stuff. I like this, and I like that there's finally a sequencer here. So once you've generated something you actually like, you can also export it using the little export window here. Here you can say which lanes you want to export. There's some filtering options. You can do a mixdown or a stem style MIDI export. You just click render and we click drag and we can... I think it should be in the same timing, 120, 120 should be good. We press OK, and there we go, our MIDI is now here. And now all this chaos we created is right here in our MIDI. If you don't want this MIDI, that's fine as well. You can also export audio in mixdown and stem mode. Actually normalize it. That's a neat little option. Let's go for the loop style. Let's press render. Let's press drag. There we go. Already done. Let's bypass. Excellent. Easy to use, functional, works perfectly. Now let's say you don't care much about the sequencer, you just want to use your samples, but you need a way to organize and generate things. You can also take these samples, let's actually not bypass it for a second, there we go, and drag these into your DAW. Let me just make it a little bit smaller. Let's say kick drum, we can just click this drag and drop thingy, there we go, this kick drum is now there. So if you just need to quickly generate a random set to have a little bit of a start, completely viable. And so another neat thing you can do is you can actually map some commonly used functionality to your MIDI controller, like the undo, redo, new kit, clear all, and randomize single drum things. So that's very nice. You also have some shortcut capabilities in the settings, and you can set your default configuration for when you load the plugin, which is pretty neat. So you can actually pre-plan, so every time you open it up, it's just exactly as you need it to be. So overall, I would say there's a lot of things that Atlas has done to make this experience a lot better and very interesting and distinctive from XO, which is of course their sort of head-on competition. So it's very good to see that they are not trying to just compete, but also try to evolve their product in different directions with a different focus, which is very cool. Does that mean Atlas is perfect? It isn't. But I think a lot of the stuff that I'm going to name next are things they can actually improve reasonably well. So one of the cool functionalities in Atlas is you can drag and drop samples. So in this instance I have taken this kick drum and I have really shortened it a lot. So the original is like this. I've shortened it a lot. However, if I export it into the DAW, it will still be the full kick. It would be nice if it actually exported those changes. I think that's something they can actually do. If you export stems, you always export all of the things, which is, I think, not ideal, because if I want to, for instance, only have the tom and the kick, it takes a heck of a lot longer. You'll see why. Separate tracks. Now it takes all tracks and not just... Yeah, that takes a second. But it takes all tracks and not just the two selected tracks. So I think that's something they can definitely fix in software. If we would just export these two as stems, would be awesome. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here already. And I think the way they are developing this product is a very good direction, because they're trying to find things that the competition is not doing, and they are implementing these changes. I think that's a very good thing, because ultimately it will make Atlas a different and better product. I like this setup a lot, and I'm really looking forward to both using the sequencer to generate very random weird things, which is excellent. And now that I think of it, can you actually... Maybe, perhaps... That would be fun, though. You can't. Well, if you want to please the generative crowd, you might want to consider implementing some way to randomize these channels with a MIDI command. Just a little tip. Yeah, so overall, I would say this is a very, very solid update from the Atlas team. I would just like to see them a little bit more active on social media. I mean, they seem to be trying, so that's awesome. Just so I don't make the mistake of saying the product is no longer really under heavy development, which was a mistake for which I am still sorry. I should have said that. It just seemed that way at the time. So that's an overview of Atlas. I am going to do a follow-up video showing you how you can use this with effects, because I think drums and effects, they go really well together. So keep an eye open for that one. And for now, I'm going to say, have a great day.